Hey. Hello, all you people out there in Radioland, and welcome to day 4 of me doing some random stuff in tool format on Ecamm, and it will be kind of random. However, there's a bit of structure to the last couple of days because 2 days ago I showed you what my key lights were like, and then yesterday I talked about the lights that are behind me, and today I'm going to talk about what else is going on behind me, because not everything is quite as it seems. So behind me here, the blue and brown background that you're seeing there is actually a pop-up stand from an exhibition, so something like what we've got above us here. And that's the sort of price I paid for my pop-up stand. Now, I had it lying about, so I've just re-utilised it. So this particular one was a curved stand, and I wasn't overly keen on the curved stand, but we'll come back to that a bit later. Let's just show you a couple of other bits and pieces first. So it is a pop-up stand that I have behind me, and it's actually, I took it off the stand and nailed it to the wall. So you can put anything you want on these pop-up stands. Your branding is totally and utterly up to you. So if you had a brand that was something like this and you wanted that giant in the background, I guess you could do it. But literally you can put anything that you want on. So if you wanted something that was more like this, then you could have that as your very clean and tidy office background. But there's a couple of things to point out here really, and some of it is to do with perspective. So here I quite like the fact that there's a little bit of perspective on the edge of this office. This works quite well as a background. However, you need to be a bit careful about where other objects are in the background, because you're going to look way out of shape if you're not careful. So here, if you look behind me, you can't see the floor at all, and you can't actually really see the ceiling. Now you might want to leave in a tiny bit of ceiling because you've got a nice bit of perspective here, but you certainly don't want to have all of this floor on your backdrop, because if you've got that much floor on the backdrop, it's just going to look weird. You're going to be in the wrong place and everything's going to be out of sync. So I kept mine very, very simple. So in fact, it stops just here, and on the right there, that's a painted wall, and behind the monitor there, this is just an IKEA unit with various different things on, including a gold mug and a nice Ecamm cushion there as well. Behind me, I should also mention, there's a very large monitor here. That's actually a Microsoft Surface Hub 2, which is a giant touchscreen monitor and computer, and it costs a lot of money. I bought it just after COVID, and it's a complete waste of time, but it was sitting there doing nothing, so I decided to turn it upright. And what I'm actually doing is I'm playing, believe it or not, a PowerPoint presentation there with the Stream Profiles logo in it. I could have it animated, but it's not. I've just had that standing still, but it's allowed me to provide some color and brightness in the background in the way of another light form as well. So other things to note about this image up here, it's very white. If that's your thing and you want something white, then great. But I think most people go for a darker color, so more like this sort of French blue, if that's what you want to call it, and got a bit of that going on slightly in the background here as well to match up a bit. It's also got some logo in the center of that image. I would highly recommend that you do not put a logo in the center of your image for several reasons really. One, you may decide that you're changing your branding, or somebody else may decide that they're changing your branding for you, and then that backdrop becomes completely useless. The other reason is that if you stick it somewhere solid in the center there, it's always in the same place. So in my case, my head would be obscuring it, so it looks nice in the picture, but on this frame it would be no good at all. So what I would tend to do is come down to somewhere like here on the Ecamm production and just put an overlay of my logo on there, and I can change and move that as is required. Whether it's a completely different logo or just a smaller version of the logo, then I can do that. So don't build it into the backdrop branding. Now the other thing about the branding here, or the backdrop rather, that I have chosen is that it's a fabric backdrop. Now I did that because I liked the fact that it doesn't bounce light off it. So some of these pop-up banners can be a bit plasticky, so you need to look out for that, and they may reflect light in odd ways. So I was able to avoid that by having a fabric version of the banner. But it was actually curved, so I thought that that might be quite a good idea. It turns out it wasn't really, because the curve suddenly meant that this vertical line here was bending. So my camera, because it's a wide angle lens, was sort of bending things around a little bit on the edges. So I could see it. I'm sure perhaps nobody else noticed it, but I could. So I took it off the special stand that it was on, and I nailed it to the wall. So literally right down here, you can't see obviously, but it is literally nailed to the wall. And it saved me having to do any painting or anything like that. So if you want to create an instant background, then you can certainly do it like that. And it comes in various different sizes. I should also mention that. So let's go on to the size one. So the banner size itself, I've got a 3-meter one, so it's 3 meters by just over 2 meters, and that is enough to cover all of my wall space, and it's probably about 8, 9, 10 feet behind me, something like that in terms of distance. So you need to consider how far away your wall is to determine how big your covering is going to need to be. So if that was much closer to me, then I'm going to get away with a smaller banner, which is cheaper. But just bear that in mind. If you get one that's not tall enough, it's going to chop off at the top, and that's not going to look any good. You really just need to measure up the wall that you're going to put it on, and then make sure that your banner is covering that wall. So what am I going to suggest that you do rather than have the curved banner is that you could get a flat version of the banner. So the same sort of banner comes in a lovely aluminium stand. The little area which is covering the wall is actually like a giant sock. You sort of pull it over the top of the banner and it will just sit there very, very nicely. It's not too heavy. You can move them about, but it is a fairly permanent fixture. So if I wanted that sitting up against my wall, I wouldn't be moving it every 5 minutes. And remember, I wouldn't be putting the Evolve logo up in the corner either. So you can have almost anything that you want behind you. And several people have commented on mine, and in fact I think Adrian Salisbury liked it so much that he went off and created his own real version of it, which looks much better than mine, but it's very, very cool. So if you're having a look at Adrian's stuff, you'll see his looks kind of similar to this but it's not. His is real. But what if you don't have that sort of a budget? Well, this company that I have used in the past is called Display Wizard, and they have some off-the-shelf pre-prepared backdrops specifically for Zoom. Now, I haven't tried these out, so my concern is maybe they could be a little bit reflective, but maybe they won't be. And certainly when your camera has got a bit of a bokeh effect on it, like mine has, so the slightly blurred effect going on in the background, these are probably going to look quite good. And you see they do a green screen version as well. So these are kind of out of the can, if you like, so they're much cheaper than it would be to go and buy another version that was customized. So these are the sort of sizes, or rather the sort of shapes and colors and things that you can have. This one's obviously a very narrow one, but they come in any size up to 2 meters wide for these pre-printed ones. So for a pre-printed one, perhaps of a library, you could get this, but 2 meters wide for £139, which to me sounds pretty good. So if you'd got a space, a limited space, and it wasn't too far behind you, maybe a meter or two, yeah, probably about a meter or two is as much as you could possibly get away with, not much more than that. But you could just pull this up directly behind you, and your space suddenly becomes a very neat and tidy library. And providing your camera has got the ability to provide you with that little blur on it, then it is probably going to be a pretty good background, and it's certainly easy to then pack away into the case, put to one side. So if you have a temporary space that you need to make look tidy, then this is a great way to do that. You just pull up the banner and you're good to go. You can also get custom versions of the smaller banners as well. I think I would, if you're going to do the custom version, I would pay the extra money and get the fabric version. But if you just want a quick, cheap solution to give you a background, then these roller banners from companies that do stands, and there's millions and millions of them out there, are a very good idea. So let's just go back to the original one that I was started to show you, but instead of being the Evolve curved banner, this is the Evolve straight fabric banner. So that's the cost. You do pay extra if you start wanting them to do graphics and things for you. If you don't want them to do the graphics for you, and I didn't, they just send you a template, you fill in the template with whatever is your backdrop and then send it in. So in terms of looking for a backdrop of an office or something like that, if that's the effect you're looking for, I think mine came from Envato Elements, but there's loads and loads of sources out there, and if you just go into them and then search for office backgrounds, you will find there are millions. In fact, you can spend hours and hours and days looking at them all. And even if you don't like, if you don't like some of the colours exactly, then you can always bring them into various different packages and alter the image before you send it off to be printed up. So just bear that in mind. That's my thoughts on the subject. So everything's not quite what it seems in the background, but I think it all hangs together quite nicely, and hopefully you got a couple of tips out of there, because that's the end of day number 4 of Advent tips, tricks, general stuff in Tool. See you later. Bye for now.